Hello, welcome to March 1st, 2023. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is something that I do each and every morning, just a little bit after waking up. It's now 4:24 a.m. I do this in order to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours and how I did applying these principles towards the objectives of my life relative to the challenges and opportunities that I encountered in the last day. You want to come up there? I also use this time to then think about the next 24 hours, beginning now, and to try to forecast what speed bumps I might meet and what opportunities I might encounter. Come here, Ollie. The dogs are restless. So first, last night and yesterday. I slept pretty good last night. Slept right up until almost the alarm went off, which is good. Wasn't thinking about work too much. It was just pretty much emptiness. I'm sure my mind was dreaming and doing stuff as the minds do, but I don't recall any of that, which is fine. That's a good sign when I'm not awake at night, because I tend to be awake at night a lot thinking about work. Rudy, come here. Come here, buddy. Good boy. Other than that, yesterday's day was just pretty much just a standard day. Had really great things happen at work yesterday. That's why I slept. Yesterday at work went really, really well. I overcame some real tough hurdles before lunchtime even. And that just set the stage for the rest of the day. Really set my mind at ease. Now I know why I slept, right? It's all about work. Let's do the good life. So these 7 objectives and 34 principles, like I said, are found in my book, Going Alone, which you can get on Amazon. But if you'd like a signed copy, you can actually buy the book through my online store. You can find that in social media. It should be available soon here on YouTube as well. I should be able to find it in my YouTube store. I just haven't quite got that integration yet figured out. So anyway, you can find it on goingalone.org as well. Let's go. So number 1, the first objective is to be always ready to die. This simply means that I have my life in such a state that if I find that I have to go, I'm all right with that. As all right as I can be. This means that I have my life affairs, my papers, my accounts, all that stuff in a good organized manner. And there is, I just the other day checked, and there's in my files there's a folder right up there at the front that says emergency. And it has for Yumiko and Emily a list of all of our bank accounts and passwords, etc., so that they can get right in. And then, of course, making sure that retirement account pension is set up with Yumiko as my beneficiary so that she'll be able to carry on without me, etc., right? Also making sure that I have my relationships in good order. What was that? Big pound of the door. Maybe it's the wind blowing. Funny thing to hear a door slam in a house where you're the only one. My wife's asleep and she doesn't slam doors. At least the dogs aren't worried. And then lastly, to have my life's work in order, and it is. My book is done. My second objective is to make good and effective use of my time so that I'm not wasting my days. As I like to tell my nephew Parker, and good morning Parker if you see this, I don't really relax, and I don't. I am always capitalizing on the day, and maybe I should relax more, but it's not my nature. And I'm not saying that nobody should relax. It's just not my nature. I have so much to do, so many things so many activities, so many books to read, so many places to walk to, so many beaches to jump into the ocean, etc., etc. And it's not just busy work, although it is. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's this good life creed that I'm referring to and that I'm working on right now. And I do that by way of the tinkering that I do right now. And I'm constantly working on this. It's morphing all the time. almost every month or two of new copies of Going Alone are different because the creed changes by virtue of my efforts. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions, just to engender within myself a man who can react well to life. I think I'm pretty good. I'm getting really good at that, actually. Next is to perform good actions. That's number 6. Or number 5, to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. Sorry, I got 2 mixed up there, didn't I? Next is number 5 is to perform good actions, just to do good things. That's all it is. Good things that are relative to the ambition of improving the well-being of thinking creatures, aka virtue. That's a mouthful. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities, so that I'm doing things that I'm actually attending to things and focusing my attention on things that I can actually do and have some leverage into, and not reaching for things beyond my grasp. Number 7 is to do just one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully, just like I am doing right now. This doesn't come naturally. My pace of speech and my cadence are usually much more brisk and careless and reckless. Boy, when I was in my 20s, boy, could I talk. But what nonsense I talked 30% of the time or more. Now I'm more measured and careful. My speech is more deliberate and reflective of who I am. I pass it through the filters of my values and season it with my emotions rather than making it the overall flavor altogether. Okay, those are my objectives. Now for my 34 principles. Number 1 is called the principle of war. And it's my reminder to always be fighting against propositions of truth, especially those that I've already onboarded and believe. I want to be disabused of incorrect belief. Number 2 is the principle of reason, with the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. Reason is my tool that I use to ascertain what is true in the world. And to do so effectively, I must be honest with myself and objective in my view, a fierce skeptic, and willing to embrace the humiliation of discovering when I'm wrong, especially publicly and in front of others. What a blessing to be humiliated in such a way. Number 3 is the homunculus, a simple suggestion that the soul doesn't exist. But without a soul, what do I have? Well, I have this body and this consciousness. And the consciousness I labeled the homunculus. Look it up, it's a fun word. Doesn't mean quite what I use it for, but it's a label that I have adopted for this purpose. After the homunculus comes the anchor hold, which I use as a kind of imagery of a man stuck on a rock in the sea, where the waves splash and the tide rises and the winds come and the rains fall and the sun burns. And that man is trapped, can never get off, and is always alone. Others are on their own rocks and they can wave and semaphore and shout across the waves, but they can never be together. And that's us. Each of us on our own rock, alone and destined to be swept into the sea. And once in the sea, that's the end of that. Next comes the home of good and evil. I don't believe in God, and I don't think that there are any absolutes in terms of right and wrong in the universe, except perhaps the seeming mandate that we have within us to find a mate and reproduce. So without absolutes in that sense, right and wrong become subjective opinions, which is interesting and an opportunity for sure. Right? Because if right and wrong are absolutes, then we simply need to abide them. And it makes life easier in that capacity because we don't have to do the hard work of ascertaining what is right and wrong. But we do wind up in the position of enforcing things that may not be the best. So since I decided to take on the hard work of being responsible for my own ideas about right and wrong, I then divorce right and wrong from absolutes I don't believe there is a God. I don't believe there is any code of ethics that permeates the universe. No, there's no good or evil amongst the stars, or right and wrong buried in the sand. It's just in here. And we have to do the hard work of figuring it out. And then reaching consensus with others. Diplomatically working on to improve and to adjust and to compromise at times, and then to pursue justice. It's a complicated thing. It's a lot of hard work, but it's the adult thing to do. It's rather childish and immature just to say it's chiseled in stone somewhere and I'll just follow that. That avoids all the hard work and the ownership of responsibility. And I think I'm grown enough now to not do that anymore. Not that I ever really did. Gave up that when I was 16. Next is the principle of purpose. My 3 purpose, since purpose doesn't seem to come from the universe itself, other than the seeming mandate to make children, my 3 purpose then are: 1, to be a good husband and father, fulfilling that first mandate. 2, to be a virtuous man, pursuing the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures, which is my definition of virtue. And 3 is the personal mission that I've taken upon myself to share the story of going alone and the consequent good life creed. Next is the principle called atomic principle. Everything is made of atoms and molecules and bits and pieces and energy, and it's all falling to pieces towards entropy. Then the principle of, including us. And then the principle of nature. Everything and everyone has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what the nature of that is. Parker and I had a good talk about that yesterday. I remember talking about the nature of his school and the classmates and the teacher and how to best adjust to that. It was a good talk. Then comes the pirate ride. I think free will is an illusion. I don't think that we're predetermined about how we're going to live our life, but we are, as they say, compatible with what's actually happening in the universe. Our decisions are based on the influence and the stimuli going on around us, a lot of which we don't have anything to do with. Free will, therefore, is a very seeming illusion. I believe, absolutely. Not even, I don't think there's even a little bit of free will in there. I can't prove this. It's just what I believe. Hallelujah. What a sinner I am. Okay, next comes maturity and the sub-principles, the principle of maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude and integrity. Maturity is that state we arrive at when we have the wisdom of the life that we've lived so far, the past successes and failures that we've enjoyed and experienced, and then we have the fortitude to do better. We then can enjoy the integrity of a life lived in accord with our values. It's a beautiful thing if you can attain it. First, you need the values. That's the hard part. But boy, does it pay dividends. Next comes the principle of called the social principle. We humans need each other, and our best ends are social ends. And to that end, the sub-principles are diplomacy, which is the effort that we make to compromise. Justice, the end that we seek in justice. Pause. The end that we seek in life through the diplomacy that we do. And then conspiracy, which is when we work together with others towards those agreed upon ends of justice. That came out all right. Next comes the principle of family. We need each other. And family doesn't have to be the nuclear family that we create or even an extended family, but it can be whatever connection of human beings and pets that you decide to put together and assemble to call your own. The family, as they say, are the friends that we choose. And family are the people that we choose, however they say it. Next comes the principle called public speaking, which is a mere and significant reminder to be very careful about our communication, both our listening and our speaking and our writing. To that end, we should cultivate a good vocabulary and learn to filter our thoughts through our values and season them with our emotions. Those are the sub-principles of big words, best words, not big words at all, best words, prudence, and felicity. Eloquence is important too, the ability to speak well, and that comes of modeling and practice. And then finally, the two negatives are rumor and gossip. Engaging in those things serves no good end. Next comes the principle of temperance, our ability to control our consumption of life. The sub-principles here are suffering, because we suffer when we tell ourselves no. Simplicity, because the simple life is a temperate life. And apathy, the ability to recognize what is beyond our reach and disconnect. It doesn't mean we don't care. It just means we recognize we can't reach that far. I can do nothing about the machinations within the deep clouds of Jupiter or Saturn. So I worry not about them. That's not a good example. Okay, like I don't attend to, I can watch a documentary about World War I, and I don't attend to worry and fret about what's happening at World War I. It's more of just an observational thing. And I don't worry and fret about it because there's nothing I can do about it. It's in history, right? So apathy is the ability to apply that sense, that seeming common sense, to something in the past that we can't influence, to the here and now, to the things that are not within our reach at present. And there's a lot of stuff that's not within our reach. It's a superpower of a sort, and it's really hard to do. And I'm by no means good at it, and I'm working on it. Okay, next is life will not go well. A simple reminder that life's going to have speed bumps. And then the next principle is called the horror show. A further reminder that those speed bumps will sometimes be bottomless potholes. Or should speed bump turn into a pothole? Those obstacles in the road will become bottomless potholes that we'll sink into and fall into and be gone, swallow us up. Those things exist. Horror is real. Cancer comes. Automobile accidents happen. Serial killers exist. Bankruptcy occurs. Divorces that render a family asunder, or whatever the case may be. These are the events that are the horror show level stuff that just tear people and humans and families to pieces. They happen, and it's good to remember that. And also to remember that it's coming for each of us if it hasn't happened already, if it's not already in your life or in the past. It recurs, right? Horror comes for all of us. Just a second, please. One thing at a time. Slowly. Okay, after the horror show comes that which must be borne, carried, B-O-R-N-E. And what we have to bear in life is the fact that life won't go well. You know, it also does go well sometimes, but you get what I mean. And we also have to bear the fact of the horror show. Then comes a principle called the feast of woeful, which is a reminder to myself to not engage in the upset and frustration and the spewing out onto others of my own inner turmoil, but to contain it within and find other ways, not to soil my family and friends with my upset. And likewise, when they're doing the same, to not consume it. Others may throw up their pain, but it doesn't mean I have to swallow it down. I can still be there for them, offer a tissue and a shoulder to cry on, but I don't have to swallow what they're spewing out, because it contaminates. It sounds like I'm being indifferent and uncaring, but I'm not. It's like it's the almost equivalent of putting the mask on your own face before attending to the mask of a child on a plane. If the masks fall down, right, you're supposed to attend to yourself first, make sure you're safe and sound, and then you can work on others. That's what the Feast of Woeful is about. In a circumstance that requires our attention, we make sure that that we protect ourselves and are secure so that we can begin working on to the betterment of others, to the aid of others. Next comes distraction. It's what we do to keep ourselves occupied so we don't have to see that God doesn't exist. And we distract ourselves with our work and our play and our hobbies and our purchases, our shopping, our Netflix that we watch, the gossip and the rumor and the politics that we follow, the religion that we abide, and the God that we serve. It's all just a big distraction, so for the most part, so that we don't have to witness the fact that God doesn't seem to exist, which I call the great indifference, which is the next principle. After that comes the best seat in the house, to be all right with who I am and where I am and what I'm doing, all the while striving for better, all the while trying to improve. After that comes the restless man. A note that sometimes in our youth, some of us become restless for a better, different, newer, different, stranger, different life, to expand out and have some sort of an adventure. The thing is that if we don't do anything about it, it tends to haunt us all of our lives, becoming more plaintive and dear the longer we wait, becoming painful in our old age when we realize that the opportunity has passed, and even if we try to do it, we can't do it quite the same. It winds up as a motorhome trip or a princess cruise rather than the adventure that we really wanted. So my recommendation is that when we're young, attend to that call, that need, that desire in due course. Give ourselves little adventures here and there. You can have mini ones, and then you can have a big one. I recommend saving the first big one for after college, to then give the diploma to your folks and then head off into the world for the next 4 or 5 years until age 30, and then come back, retrieve your diploma, and get started in earnest on your life, on this more social element of your life. You'll be glad you did, because you will have been upon what I call the path of wildness, which is the next principle. It's the route that leads from one life to another. It's the segue between episodes and chapters of life. And then you will have achieved a great life adventure, your own story, the thing that will define you, more than so perhaps than in just about anything else. More so even than your family and your kids in some ways. It'll make you better for a parent too, father or mother. Okay, I just covered 3 principles there. The restless man, the path of wildness, and the great life adventure. There's another one, and this is kind of a fourfer. They go together. This 4th one is called the risk of avoiding risk. And it's what happens if we are a restless man or a woman in our youth and we don't do anything about it, and we wind up very secure later in life, but having never had the adventure. That's one side of the risk. The other side of the risk is spending too much time on the adventure side and not attending to the safety and security in the family and the home and the hearth of all that stuff. The thing is to try to find a balance between the two, where you can have a life of security and convenience and family mixed in with, and safety mixed in with adventure. It's a tough thing to do. We usually err on one side or the other too much, but it can be done. I think I've just barely pulled it off. If it hadn't been for coming back to America, I would have definitely erred too far on the side of adventure. I wouldn't have been recovered from that. It would have been terrible. It just meant I have to work a lot longer, and I would not get to enjoy much freedom. But who knows? Will I survive to enjoy the freedom based on the amount of stress that I onboarded to live this life? We'll see. Okay, I just covered a lot there. The next principle that is sin and damnation. There are 8 sins in my worldview, and the consequence of these sins, of engaging in these sins, is damnation in the here and now. And these sins enumerated are: 1, falsity, being untrue; 2, credulity, being too ready to believe things; 3, faith, believing things and basing our belief upon the belief itself, which is nonsense. Superstition is number 4, a category of nonsense belief, a whole category. And then dogma, believing things based on tradition. And then authority, believing things based on charisma or a high office or funny hat, and then rumor and gossip, which are nasty things in their own right. That's 8. And engaging in any of those results in a damnation of sorts in the here and now. The next principle is called complete oblivion. Since I don't believe I have a soul, I don't think there's any God, therefore I don't think there's any heaven or hell or any afterlife to follow. That means that when I'm dead, I'll never see my loved ones again. I'll have no happy reunion, no final reunion with them. I'll have no chance, if I can't have a reunion with my loved ones, then I'll have no chance to reconcile any differences that we parted terms on. And so no final reconciliation. No final reunion, no final reconciliation, and as a result of all of that, there'll be no final justice, because there's no lawgiver or justice meter outer. Death is absolute and final, and we'll never be back, and we'll wink out, and it'll be just like, I think, before we were born. And why do I think that? Because there's absolutely no good reason to think otherwise. There's no good evidence for God or a soul or an afterlife or a heaven or hell. There's all the reason to think that this is all we get. Next is the principle of script writing, which is a skill that we can use to kind of forecast the minutes, hours, days, and weeks ahead and life ahead, right? By kind of forecasting out, planning in our head imagery. Then comes a principle called the bullseye aim, the ability to remember that we should expect to miss. We should strive to hit the bullseye of our targets in life, but we should expect to miss by some degree and not be surprised, and be instead of being upset that we missed, we should be delighted when we hit. It's a simple change in perspective, living life like darts. Next is the uphill climb, a reminder to strive to climb higher today than I was yesterday, to have a more expansive view of the world, to read a good book, to expand our understanding, to have good conversations, do a good job at work, etc. All the things that make life best. Next comes the principle called arena and utility. Life is an arena for the development of good and sound principles we can use to achieve objectives that we set for ourselves, and to keep those things sharp and oiled and handy through constant attention. And I do that by this daily activity of remembering my objectives and principles. Next is, and this is the second to last, I think, the principle called nothing is enough, which is kind of a placeholder principle as I've worked on over the last couple of months to try to figure out just how to use it. I think more and more I'm just seeing it for what it is, which is a simple reminder that to get by with less, to make of my life with less of what I've got, and to need less. There's a lot of potential in this one, and I can see it. I can't quite reach it yet, though. This is where the tinkering happens, right? Next comes, and this is the final principle, the principle of fun. A reminder to have a good time, and to remember the good times of yesterday, and to plan for the good times of tomorrow and beyond. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a good fun time today. I'll enjoy time with my coworkers in our meetings. I'll enjoy the effort that I do. I enjoy ticking things off my list of activities at work. In the evening, I'll enjoy a nice walk with my wife. I'll enjoy a nice walk during lunchtime as well. We'll watch our show together in the evening as we eat dinner. I'll enjoy my time sitting talking to people on Discord in the evening. I'm typically on the Discord being sometime between about 6 and 7 p.m. Pacific. Come join us if you like. You go to goingalone.org and look for the Discord thing, and you can click on that, and that'll take you there. Or send me an email at dinnerbytheriver@gmail.com if you have trouble, and I'll send you a link. I'll remember the good times we had in Japan and beyond. And Yumiko, when I was telling her this yesterday, that we need to have some new fun thing to plan. Like, I think I'll take her to a nice restaurant this weekend to thank her for taking care of me during COVID. That'll be fun to look forward to. That's it. That's a good life. Now let's plan for the day. I'll finish this. I'll upload this. I'll do my peck out a little story. Then I'll go over and I'll read the Bible. I think I'm on Joel 2. No, not Joel. Amos. Am I saying it right? I finished Joel already. Now I'm on the book of Amos. I'll read that, and then I'll take the dogs and I'll feed the dogs and let them out if they want to go out. Well, they want to go out, but it's raining. They won't want to go out for long. And then after that, I'll come in and start my day, organize my tasks, prepare for my work, and get started in earnest and knock those tasks off. It's going to be a good day. Thank you for joining me. I wish you all the best. Remember to be safe, but not too safe. And with that, my life is done, if not finished. Take care.